All right, CC Sabathia is here. You were protesting today in Brooklyn. Tell me about what happened today.
Yeah, it was it was good. We went out with the family. My kids have been super into this. I have a 16, 14, 11, and 9-year-old. And I mean, the 9-year-old has been super curious about everything that's going on and curious about, being able to get killed with the skin color he has, you know what I'm saying? And everything really that's just going on in America right now. Um, after this George Floyd murder. We just felt obligated to get out there with the kids and educate them on everything that's going on and, you know, get out there and not just post stuff on social media. You know what I'm saying? So it was fun to be able to get out there with the kids and really show our support and protest and hopefully I'm marching and walking and going to these rallies with my boys and my daughters so they don't have to do it with their kids. And that's really what it's about, is just teaching them. So it was a good day today to be able to get out there and share with some people. And everybody's going through this differently. Everybody goes through things differently, and to be able to share what we're going through with different people was helpful today.
Was this the first one that you've gone out with the whole family for?
This is the first one we all went to, and actually we were gonna go to the one in Brooklyn today, and then there was one in Hackensack, New Jersey, that we were gonna go to at 5:30, but Brooklyn took all day, so kind of took it out of us. But I think we're going to another one on Saturday over here in Jersey, and my kids are all in. They want to do as much activism, activist, I guess it would be called, as they can. So we're here to provide it for them and just take them to whatever they want to go to.
How is this moment different for your family and how you talk to your kids compared to 2014 when
This
the last time we were here?
Yeah, this moment is different for me because my 16-year-old be driving in the fall. And he has dreads. He's a big kid, plays sports, and he's gonna be out on his own. So, the conversations we've been having even before this, when he got his permit and we were in the car together, his first driving lesson, the first lesson was about how to deal with the police when you get pulled over by the police and what you need to do and not move fast and, not raise your voice and not come off as a threat. All these things are things that I have to teach him as a driver. You know what I'm saying? Not, I mean, and it's just insane that I have to teach him that in 2020. So it's different for me this time because my kids are so much older and are gonna have these encounters with the police. And I mean, it's just inevitable that it's gonna happen in their lifetime, and you just want them to be prepared. So, now I just feel like I'm in a frenzy, trying to tell them everything, trying to teach them everything, trying to show them everything. And it's a tough time right now, but that's what being a parent is, I guess.
So your son was born in 2004 when
He was born in 2003.
2003.
Yeah.
So were you thinking you're in the delivery room and you're thinking, man, so I hope when this kid is old enough, there are conversations that I hope I'm not going to have? Or do you just know it's inevitable?
You know what? You just know it's inevitable. I think even if we weren't in this spot and you know things hadn't happened, the last couple of weeks, I still, that would still be the topic of every conversation is how to deal with the police and how to not make yourself look like a threat. And that's what we have to do as Black males in this country as of today. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we were out there today in Brooklyn for, is to try to change that. So until that's changed, that's something that he's going to have to deal with. And when he has a kid, if nothing's changed, he's going to have the same conversation. So, hopefully all this protesting and people out in the streets, not so much the looting, but just the people protesting and people out in the streets, will get things changed.
When you're out there, I mean, you got to be getting recognized, right? How do you even handle that whole thing where you're a celebrity out there with a bunch of people?
You know what? I think New Yorkers just take me as like a regular guy now. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm so, I guess, in the community all the time, and I'm just out all the time, and I'm around all the time, that it's not a big deal. A couple people notice me, and said what's up, but nobody asked to take a picture, nobody, anything like that. And that never really happens to me in New York anymore. So I think I'm out so much that people are like, oh, it's CC again.
That sounds like you're an official New Yorker now.
It does, right? And something that I never thought I'd be coming from the West Coast. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm officially from the Bronx now.
Unbelievable. Going back 8 days, when did you know that this moment was going to be different? What was the moment? What was the revelation where you're like, "Oh, this actually might be it. This could be it."
Man, to be honest, like, because I follow Steven Jackson, just hearing his reaction when he first posted the very first post, and that had to be, I think, that Monday night. Yeah, that was when I was like, man, this one might be a little different, just because the video had came out and just seeing the optics of it, and the cop on the knee after everybody going through so much for taking the knee. It just seemed like it was a perfect storm for us to get some change. And obviously people have been locked up for 3 months. There's nothing to take the focus off of what's going on. So I think just everything that's been going on in the country the past couple months kind of led us to this moment.
And what do you think happens the next 2 weeks? Because we know what just happened, and we've heard a lot of people, including myself. I said before we even came on, like, this feels different, and I hope this doesn't become a thing where for 2 weeks people care and then they move on.
Yeah,
what's gonna happen for people not to move on this time?
I think people just gotta. I obviously keep protesting. Keep posting. We have to vote this year. You gotta. We got to get the right people in office. At the local and state levels, you know what I mean? And to try to get some of these things changed, and, maybe some kind of policing of the police would come out of this, where, some kind of law where they all have to wear body cams, or, just a universal set of laws for all police that, that none of them can cross in any state, in any town. So, that's what I'm hoping for, is that, some kind of policing of the actual police force will come out of this. Because if you watch, what happened to George Floyd, and then everybody's out protesting, but, people are still getting ran over by SUVs, and, the police are still beating people up on bikes, and, it's just a lot of different things where they're still using a lot of excessive force, even with the protesters. So something's got to change.
So we've seen a lot of athletes talk about this stuff using social media and different things. LeBron 2 times this week, really came in as about as strong as he ever has.
Mm-hmm.
You're at a different point in your life, right? You've had some experience doing media. You've had a full career. You're older. You're wiser. What would it be like to be a high-profile Black athlete in your 20s with that kind of responsibility, where everybody is expecting, we need you, you need to step up, but you're still trying to figure out who you are as a human being? Like, what's that like?
Yeah, that's tough. And to be honest, if there was social media around when I was in my 20s, and a lot of this social injustice was going on, I wouldn't know how to handle it and how to post. I'm very emotional. So even if you look at my Instagram just the last couple of days, it's a lot of emotional, you know what I mean? It's emotional stuff on there. So it's hard for me to deal with those emotions, especially in the moment. That's why I'm glad I got a couple of days to do this before we started talking about it, just because, if you caught me earlier this week, I probably would have flew off the cuff and said some things that I probably shouldn't say, on a podcast. So, yeah, I mean, that's hard. And, I talk to Mookie Betts a lot, and we talk about different things. And, some of these things is hard to speak up on. You want your whole fan base to love you. You know what I mean? And some of these things are hard for, some fans and some people to hear. So, that makes it a lot tougher, as opposed to somebody like me, or even somebody like LeBron. LeBron's so good that, as soon as he gets back out there on the court, nobody cares what he tweets. You know what I'm saying? So, but those lower level guys, it makes it hard as an athlete, especially an African-American athlete. So much stuff that goes on. It's so much stuff to care about. It's so much social injustice. I mean, you just be you'd be going crazy. And you know, a lot of my career, you know, I tried to, for the most part, you know, not really speak on things that were outside of sports. You know, in the clubhouse, you know, we talk about different things, we have different arguments and stuff like that. But in the media, I always just tried to steer clear of that stuff, just because I didn't want any of the real backlash, to be honest.
Well, and you also went from Cleveland, then a little cup of coffee in Milwaukee, and then all of a sudden you're in New York.
I'm in New York, yeah.
Yeah, 100 times as many media members. I mean, Cleveland,
Yeah.
how many people were in the clubhouse for an average
It-
Indians game?
It was Sheldon Erlacher and Paul Hoynes. That was it.
Yeah, in New York, you have 200 people just waiting for you to fuck up,
Yeah,
holding the camera at you.
Yeah, I mean, we went to the ALCS with the Indians, and we couldn't believe how much media was in the clubhouse. Like, you know, it was just crazy. It swarmed. But, like, that's every day in New York. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? When I got to New York, and that's literally every day of our lives, walking into the clubhouse, is, you know, 20 to 30 media guys there.
Can I ask you about the difference of especially black athletes in different sports and how they're not only expected to respond to situations like the last 8 days, but it's almost like they fit into these different buckets, right? The basketball players, we're just used. They have the most leeway. They're the most outspoken. They're the most out there. The football players, all of the stuff that's going on with the actual NFL, not just Kaepernick, but everything else, you could feel a divide all the time. And we felt it this week with Brees.
Mm-hmm.
And then baseball, I don't even know how to describe baseball. I mean, there's less black players now in baseball than there were, I think, when I was growing up loving the Red Sox. Like, what from, like you mentioned Mookie Betts, who I think is, you know, probably the highest profile black baseball star that we have.
Mm-hmm.
What are the limits on him? What are the expectations of him in that sport compared to a sport like basketball?
To be honest, I don't think they're that high. You know, and I don't think they're like a basketball or a football player, just because there's so few of us in the game. You know, and for us, you know, a lot of times, you know, with so many few black, you know, baseball players, it's hard to even have a conversation about it, because you're sometimes the only one in the locker room. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, a lot of the stuff don't even come up. Like, you're having these conversations with your friends and people that you're closest with, and not really your teammates, because there's probably only one of you on the team. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's where, you know, some of us not speaking up all the time comes from, because you will be the only one in the locker room most of the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you think about the past couple of years, it's been me, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo, and Aaron Hicks in the clubhouse. We had Cameron Maben. Like, we've always had a lot of African American or black guys on our roster with the Yankees, but every team isn't like that. So a lot of the times you won't have the support that you think you will, stepping up and speaking on these social issues. So I think that's where a lot of the quietness comes from a lot of the younger baseball players, until you get to a point where you're like me, when you got old kids and you're a lot older, and you just feel, you know, you want to say whatever you want.
It's also a sport that intentionally penalizes you in a lot of ways, not overtly, but they don't want individual expression. They don't. You think about even stuff as innocent as like a bat flip. Oh, you broke the code. Oh, you're showing him up.
I'm hopefully we moving out of that phase where the showing you up and breaking the code and all of that stuff can get out of the game, hopefully really soon.
It's the most orderly of all the sports.
It is.
Where it's just like, no, this is how we've done it since the 1890s.
And you have to do it this way.
Yeah, you got to respect the code.
You're not playing the game the right way. Yeah, exactly. Like,
it's just
I
weird.
hate that.
It doesn't reflect real life at all.
I always hated he don't play the game the right way. Well, what the fuck does that mean?
Right.
He don't play the game the right way. Does he run hard? Does he run the bases hard? He treat his teammates right? Well, he's playing the game the right way. You know what I'm saying? Like, anything outside of that, I don't give a fuck about. It's like I don't care at all.
We had Manny, who is my second favorite Red Sox player ever.
Yeah.
And
who's the first? Who would be the first?
Well, Fred Lynn was my first guy.
Okay.
When I was growing up as a kid. He was our center fielder. I had all his cards, all that stuff. And then when we got Manny, you know, we had him, I think, for 8.5 years, but he was just such an individual. And, you know, baseball is such a unique sport where you're with these guys day in, day out for 6
Mhm.
months. And it's kind of
Mhm.
boring. It's always on. You're kind of half paying attention. And then just with him, and everybody in baseball would get so mad at him for all these different things he did, right?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, he's just like this innocent, simple guy, but he just couldn't help himself. And in Boston, it played in a really fascinating way where people embraced it early, then they
Then
turned,
they hated it.
then they were back in. It was really dependent on whether we were winning or not.
I was about
And
to
then,
say it
yeah.
always it only depends on if they're winning or not. When they win the World Series, then it's Manny being Manny, and then if it's not, then he's killing the franchise. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I always felt like he cared. I always thought I always started from there with him, but I've never seen anything like him. And when he left, it was the team, even though we won a couple more World Series and we had some great guys, but the team was never quite the same from a person. It's just he was so unique. And
From a personality
yeah.
standpoint, no doubt. I mean, he was so. I mean, even with Johnny Damon too. Like you guys had some crazy person, like Millar. You know what I mean?
Oh
Like
yeah.
it was a bunch of like wild personalities just slapped together on a couple teams. So that I can see that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that was probably the only reason we won in '04 is that team was so crazy.
Yeah,
That was the
and
only way you're going to flip a curse. You
I
know,
was about to say
you felt
that.
that in Cleveland where it's the fan base and all this baggage that the franchise has. It actually falls on the players.
Nah, no doubt. And like I said, my biggest disappointment my whole career is not winning the championship in '07. Letting the Red Sox come back. We were up 3-1. Young team, very talented team. I think the most talented team in the league at the time for me. We were the better team. They were just more experienced. And we didn't know how to close a series out. You know what I'm saying? And we let them come back and they ended up beating the Rockies. I think they swept the Rockies that year, which would have been a huge, huge, huge World Series for us in Cleveland. And we kind of let that one slip through the cracks, just being young guys, you know?
The Rockies, you beating the Indians was definitely our World Series that year. Like
Yes.
you guys had the best team.
We had the best team, but I didn't pitch like I should have. If I pitched the way I pitched at the end of '08 or even in the '09 playoffs, then we win the World Series. But I was young, and wanted all the pressure. I wanted all the glory. Like I wanted to be the reason why we won. I wanted to be the ALCS MVP, the World Series MVP. I wanted it all, and I ended up being the reason why we fucking lost the series.
It's so weird to hear somebody talk about a Red Sox team as a team that took something from them. Because
Right.
my first 30 years of my life was just pain and falling short. And then I don't know, somehow it flipped a little bit. What was your first year with the Indians? 02, 03?
01.
01.
Yeah, I came
So,
up in '01.
and LeBron's a high schooler at that point.
LeBron was, I think he might have been in the 10th grade at that time. He might have
And
been a
are
sophomore in
you
high school.
hearing about him at that point?
No, I was going to see him. So our trainer, our head trainer, Paul Spicuzza, was a high school and AAU referee. And they used to bring all the top prospects and even some of the younger big league guys to Cleveland in January for this thing called winter development. We would get a host family. We stay up there for a month and a half and then go down to Winter Haven for spring training. So during that time, Paul used to always tell me, you got to come see this kid play. I'm like, man, I'm not going to see no fucking high school kid play. Like, there's no chance I'm going to watch this. He told me his whole freshman year, he's like, you got to come see him play. You got to come see him play. I'm like, no chance. He was like, so I get up there the winter of 2000, had to be the winter of 2000, and maybe it was the winter of 2001. And he was like, all right, he's playing across the street. Like, I mean, right here, we can just walk over there. Like, let's go see him play. And I was like, I walked over, went to go see him play, and he was literally what he is now. He was a grown man. Like,
Yeah.
it was unbelievable. You could just see that he was going to be a superstar at that age. And just, as long as he didn't get hurt, as long as, shit didn't happen, like, he was going to be the guy. It was insane to watch him.
Yeah, there was a whole thing at least for a tiny bit where people were like, "Are we sure he's the age he's supposed to be?"
Right? Yeah, he was. They were talking about like maybe he was older and
Yeah, is he 25? But then when you look back at the pictures of him in high school, he really does look young because you think like he's really now we know what a grown man LeBron looks like because he grew into one. But
Yeah, he looked really young, and even his game was a lot younger. I mean, his body, you know what I'm saying? Like, he was a lot skinnier. Got a chance to see him play football a couple times.
oh, really?
Yeah, I got a chance to see him play football a couple times. He's a great receiver.
Wait,
He could have easily did that if he wanted to. So, yeah, man, he was fun to watch, and it was fun to be up there at that time, Northeast Ohio, watching him do his thing. So, for me, he's the only athlete that's been under that much pressure at the age of 15, 16 years old and delivered. Whatever delivering is, you know what I'm saying? Won a championship in Cleveland. He's got 3 rings. He's one of the best players on the planet. Like, there's never been a guy on the cover of Sports Illustrated at that age that's been able to deliver.
yeah, it's funny because we're doing this documentary we have on HBO that's actually going to come out in July called Showbiz Kids about child actors and what happens to them after, how hard it is to become famous when you're young and just all the different ways it can go. And you think of LeBron and he's almost like a child actor, right? We get to know him when he's 15 and he's getting all this stuff thrown at him that we have just seen go really badly for a lot of different people. And
Yeah.
I'm with you. I think he's handled it from start to finish probably the best out of anybody. I actually think he'd be the number one ranked guy for how have you handled this? The worst thing he ever did was the decision, which was ultimately the only thing that hurt was him. Didn't
Yeah, I
hurt.
mean, he's opened schools. I mean, there's nothing this guy hasn't done. Like, he's a global icon and he wears it well. Like, he's a family man, he does everything right. Like you said, I mean, he's probably he's the number one guy as far as like how to handle, all that success. And I mean,
He
him
did
and his
wear
friends. Yeah, I mean, Rich and Mav too. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy.
he did wear a Yankee hat to your playoff game though.
He's a Yankee fan. He's a
I know.
Yankee fan.
I'm just pointing
Yeah.
that out. Don't like him
Yeah,
too much. He did root against you.
He's a Yankee fan, and then in 16 he was all Indians when they were playing
Oh, he
the
flipped?
Cubs in the World Series. Yeah, he flipped.
Oh, so he's a sports bigamist. He had 2 teams. He's like had 2 wives.
Yeah, for sure. But like, if I see him, he'll always like go back to his Yankees. You know what I'm saying? But I think 16 they were just feeling it so much that he went back. He went back to Cleveland, which is good for him.
Did you get to know him when he was on the Cavs the first time around? When you're on the Indians, he's on the Cavs. Both of you guys are on the ascent. They make the 07 finals. You should have won the 07 World Series. Like, was there any parallel stuff going on?
Yeah, for sure. I knew him. I've known him this whole time. I've always been really close with Wes. And him and LeBron and Wes are really close. And I grew up with Drew Gooden, and Drew played in Cleveland that first time around.
Yeah.
So I was around all the time because, like I said, literally me and Drew grew up together. Still really close friends. Our wives are really close. So I was around all the time in those early years for sure.
Cleveland, then after that, the thing people don't know about you, and we've talked a couple times, is you're just a gigantic sports fan, which I'm
Yeah.
always amazed when somebody who was that successful in a sport is also really well versed in other sports, because I don't understand how people have time to actually like legit follow. Because Jalen was like this too, where Jalen was a huge football fan. I'm like, how the fuck did you follow football when you were making $20 million a year playing for the Pacers? But you follow this stuff. When it fell apart for Cleveland, LeBron leaves, the Indians thing falls apart. Like, how bad did you feel that? Did you just think that was it? They're never winning. They're screwed for life.
I felt horrible because I'm a part of that history. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I'm a part of that history, that fucked up Cleveland sports history where, damn, like, if CC pitched better, we win a World Series. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be a part of like that Ernest Bynum. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be a part of that, but I am. Like, and yeah, it was tough. And especially, this is going to sound weird, but like, especially coming here and then winning in 09 and then like LeBron left that year. Like, you know what I'm saying? It was just, I felt guilty. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I've told you this, Cleveland, I feel like is home, one of place where I kind of grew up. I got there when I was 20 years old. I had, 3 of my kids were born there. It's just like a place that I consider, to be like home, and to not be able to deliver a championship there, it really sucks. I still think about it all the time.
Yeah, you had the typical baseball player arc, but the best version of it. The Cleveland part sucked, obviously, but you get pennant pennant trade to Milwaukee, but then you actually got to like pitch in the playoffs and kind of make a run there.
Mhm.
And then you look at the big landscape and you sign with the Yankees. And by the way, not to be a dick to the Yankee fans listening, but that's their only title since 2000. I just wanted to mention that. But you sign there, and it actually is the rare giant free agent signing, and it works, and they win a World Series. Which, FYI, with baseball, that usually is not how it plays out. Usually, they sign the guy, it's a disaster. He makes so much money, the fans turn on him a month in, and it goes down this whole other path. But for you, it was the opposite.
Yeah, it was, and like I said, I mean, everything was such a learning experience. After, '07, winning the Cy Young, pitching horribly in the playoffs and kinda losing us the World Series. '08, I come back the next year, get off to a horrible start in the first half, and then pitch great down the stretch and get that Milwaukee kinda like playoff games. Those were like playoff games at the end of the year. Like those last 3 or 4 starts, like we had to win those games, and I'm pitching on 3 days rest. So, it's in hot, like everything's heightened like the playoffs. So, I get to the next year, I'm a Yankee, and I've just did this. I just went down the stretch in Milwaukee, pitching 3 days rest. Like, I'm gonna do this the whole playoffs. Like, there's no problem. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, it was a progression for me. Like a lot, I feel like some athletes get it where they just kind of like can just kind of flip the switch where they can lock in. It's playoff time. They can lock in and dominate. And I think it took me, the '07, '08, and then leading up to '09 to be able to turn into the pitcher that I wanted to be in October.
Reps.
Reps. Some guys don't need reps, though. Some guys don't need reps, but I needed reps for sure.
This was my case. I got in a shit because I was mad that Devin Booker didn't play for Team USA last year.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, that guy's never played a meaningful basketball game. If he goes and plays Team USA, the pressure of that, and then everybody got mad at me. He doesn't want to get hurt, the blah, blah, blah. And it's like, all right, maybe there's no right answer, but I still feel like I'm right to the degree of reps matter.
Yeah,
and Devin Booker's great. I want to see him in situations when it's like you're down 5 and the crowd's fucking going nuts and you have to come through. And sometimes you just don't know with people until they've been in that spot.
You never know. But do you think that the guys that go play for Team USA when they spend that summer playing, they come back the next year like at another level? Maybe it's just because they work out with everybody else that's great, and you get different workout routines and stuff like that, or it's just a practice or whatever. But the guys that come back from Team USA, the Olympic years and the years that they have to qualify, I feel like they have the better seasons when they come back that next year.
It's irrefutable that there's like legit statistical evidence for it. And I think being around guys, not only just the level of competition every day, but it especially happened in '08 when you have older players and you have the younger guys who think they know everything, but they really don't. And that team had Wade and Carmelo and LeBron and some other guys. And they're watching Kobe, who's a lunatic at the time and, is who he is. And they're watching that and they're going, oh man, okay, so that's what I have to do?
That's what you got to do.
And I think that's that. And you look at all three of those guys were great in the 08, 09 season. But I think that's the most underrated thing. I think when great players are around other great players, I'm sure you felt this at the Yankees because the Yankees had a huge payroll and a lot of great players. I'm sure you're learning, different pieces from whoever that you wouldn't be learning if you're on the Florida Marlins on a 62-win team.
Yeah, 1,000%. Like coming here and getting to play with Andy, Mo, A-Rod, Jeter, all these different guys. First you are learning, but then it just takes the pressure off. It unlocks your game because I don't have to go out and throw a shutout. I don't have to go out and throw a shutout to win the game. I can pitch 8 great innings, give the ball to Mo, and the fucking game's over. You know what I'm saying? I don't have to go out and strike out 15. I can throw my two-seamer, put the ball on the ground, let A-Rod, G, Robbie Cano, Teixeira do their thing. Like, it just kind of unlocks your game when you play around so many other great players because you don't have to do too much. You know what I'm saying? That's not a knock on anybody else I played with. It's just like a compliment to these great Yankees that I got a chance to play with, and a lot of them are Hall of Famers. So, yeah, I mean, for sure, being around other great athletes, for me, it just took the pressure off. And two, I learned a lot from, I mean, I wouldn't have had the second half of my career, not knowing that cutter from Andy and Mo. So, yeah, I mean, you learn so much, man. It's crazy. And I just always think about the guys from Team USA that, they go and play that summer and then they come back and just kill it the next year. It's amazing to watch.
When you signed with the Yankees, I'm sure there were a lot of reasons, right? It was a lot of money. It's a really good team. You want to win a title. You want to live in a big city or adjacent to a big city, things like that. But did you fully realize the Rivera part of it?
Like how good he was?
Just what an asset that would be in your life to just know that somebody was lurking in the ninth inning that was just going to shut down whatever you had just done in the best way.
I had no idea how awesome that would be. Like, cause I was just always conditioned when I was younger to finish it. Like, I'm always out there. Like, if I don't finish this fucking game, like I'm pissed, And then it was just like, let me just go 8. You know what I'm saying? Like, this guy's the best pitcher of all time ever. In the bullpen, like, I would get excited. Like, I'd be like, Joe, you're not taking me out. Like, a couple times he let me go, and I'm like, Joe, like, Mo is down there. I could just go up, take a shower, and I could slap 5, you know what I'm saying, in 10 minutes. Like, it was a great asset to have, and I think I kind of took it for granted because when he wasn't there, then you get to see, like, how scary the ninth inning really is.
It's funny. My son really got into football this year, and for some reason, he, because he's a 12-and-a-half-year-old kid, and he loves lists and who's the greatest, and so we always talk about Rice and LT and all these guys, and it's a shorter list than you think when you're rattling off, the greatest players. And I always tell him, like, I'm 50. I've seen basically I can remember everybody from the mid-'70s on. Here are like the 7 guys that stood out. If I did that for baseball, I don't know who I would start with before him. And I don't think he's seen as the greatest player of all time, but I'm just talking about my lifetime where I think of guys like, who's a one of one? Who is somebody that was completely unlike anybody else that was in your life as a sports fan? And I think for baseball, like, he's like kind of over here. And then you could litigate all the other stuff and all the other great players I've seen and all these different positions, great starters. But he's like kind of over here on the side while you argue about everybody else, right?
He is. And I think if you would just ask just anybody that question randomly, they probably wouldn't put him in their list.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, because he is just off to the side over here, like just one of one, like you said. So, yeah, I mean, it makes it kind of weird when you're having those conversations of like, who's the greatest baseball player you've ever seen, and you don't mention his name because he was so dominant for so long with one pitch. He threw one pitch. You know what I'm saying? Like, later in his career, when I got to know him, he started throwing a 2-seamer a little bit, but I mean, he dominated with one pitch. And, whether it was April 1st or October 31st, he's out there, same demeanor. If we lose, he's back out there the next day. I mean, I've never seen anybody so even keel, man. It's crazy.
We were just going at him, that unbelievable Red Sox Yankees stretch, which you missed. I think by the time you got there, the rivalry wasn't the same, but we'd play them like 18 times plus if we met in the playoffs, another 5 to 7. And it always felt like such an achievement if we got a run off them. In a way that it just didn't feel like with any other pitcher. There's been a lot of great pitchers who had awesome seasons and great stretches. And that's the only guy where, like, even in 2004, when the famous, getting a run in the Roberts deal, and then Game 5, it was just so unbelievable to watch. And it wasn't even, they were like cheap runs. It's like a walk.
It was like jam shots.
A steal. But you feel like you really accomplished something unbelievable. And then when he came, they were the first game when we rose the banner in 2005. And they introduced all the guys, and Rivera gets introduced. And the Fenway fans go nuts because it was kind of like sarcastic, like, thanks, you were there when it all turned. And he kind of owned it. He just raised his hand. And it was just, he was the one guy that we kind of really liked. Just out of pure respect. It was just weird to be like, I fucking hate that guy. Like, nobody felt that way with him. Just
You know what's crazy about Mo is, like I said, he was always exactly the same. You're right. It's hard for people to hate him, but he was just always so helpful too. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I think like at All-Star games, he would help different players and different pitchers. So I think the respect that the players have for him maybe kind of rubbed off as the fans too. You know what I mean? Like because he had so much respect from everybody really around the league and still does. I think
Well,
it's kind of hard to hate Mo, like seriously. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, it feels that I don't know. Listen, I've managed to find hate in my heart for every Yankee ever that's gone against us. Sports hate, not real hate. But one thing with him, there's a serenity about him. And I always hear teammates talk about that it would weirdly have this calming effect on teammates too. And I also don't know anybody else I've ever heard, at least in baseball, that you heard other people talk about that. There was an aura about him that actually gave them kind of calm. Is that true? Did you feel that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, my calm was like knowing he was in the bullpen. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like knowing he was down there. And to your point, like I remember a couple of times, like he would give up runs in the ninth. Say we were up by 3, he give up a run. Like it felt like the other team like felt like they walked him off. Like we still won the game, but everybody's like they're over there slapping 5 and shit. Like, yeah, we might be able to win tomorrow. Like we just scored a run off Mo. Like that shit gave people confidence. You know what I'm saying? Like it's a trip, man. It was a trip playing with him and watching him do his thing. It was fun. Definitely a
Well,
blessing.
what was the least surprising thing about Yankee fans once you spent an entire decade with them? And what was the most surprising thing about Yankee fans? I hate Yankee
Uh,
fans, by the way, but I'm going to ask anyway.
I think the least surprising thing is that they're very knowledgeable. Like they know baseball. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I think as a player and to be able to play here for I think I played 11 or 12 years, I think 11 years. They hold you accountable. Like you're always like I'm working out in the offseason in January thinking about like, man, I can't get booed off the field. And you know what I'm saying? Like that really is a part of your psyche as a Yankee is the fans and how you have to respect them and go out and give your best effort every time. And I think that's where our love and our mutual love and respect came from is because they knew every time I went out there, I was going to give them 150. My whole heart was going to be left out there in the Bronx every time. And I think they respected that, whether it was good or bad or whatever. That's just who I was and how I played. So I think it worked out good for me to like be so emotional and wear my heart on my sleeve and go out there and do the things that I did. And I think, we had that mutual appreciation for each other because I guess I played so hard.
You know, some guys can't handle that because I think Boston and New York and Philly and a couple other cities, they're all kind of like that, right? And they have
Mhm.
such high expectations that people either rise to the expectations or they literally cave. They go the other way. They just can't handle it. Can you see the other side of that? Can you see when somebody just, like we had guy like Carl Crawford's a good example of
Yeah.
somebody. You always hear the words, "He wasn't meant to play in Boston." It's like, why isn't somebody meant to play in a city like that?
Um, I know Carl. We grew up together. I'm not grew up together, but we came up together, had the same agent. I think that for Carl, I think Boston was just too small of a city. I think, he wanted to go out and go to dinner, do different things and stuff like that. And I think, Boston wasn't going to allow him to be able to do those things. And I think it just became baseball, baseball, baseball. And that got hard on him. I think for me, no, I mean, it's hard for me to see it any other way than how it played out for me because I put so much pressure on myself
Yeah.
that like that I appreciate what they make you go through, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because that's how I am on myself. Like that's how hard I am on myself. Like I mean, I'm pissed if I don't go 7, 8 innings, when I'm younger. Like if I don't go out there and dominate every time and feel like I dominated that team, I didn't feel like I did my job. So um I appreciated, being held to that high ass standard. Because that's what I held myself to and I never expected anything else from myself. And in a different way, I got I had, 3 kids when I first came here, had my 4th in 2010. And, when I left the ballpark, I would come home and just hang out with them. Once I left the field, I left everything, whether it was a good or bad game, they didn't care. 7 runs, a no hitter, they don't give a shit. His dad's home and it's time to, hang out and play. And that's what I think allowed me to, to like flip the switch, like leave it at the stadium, come home, hang out, do my thing, and then be able to go back and turn it back on. So my
Well,
family helped me big time in that way.
well, nowadays if you were 25, you'd only have to worry about 6 innings and 94 pitches, and then you'd
Right?
be done.
I'll be done. Like I can live in this era, bro. Like that's what I said. Like y'all want to go to 6 starters? Like I only need to go 5 innings. Like towards the end of my career, it was like they was catering this shit for me. Like
Right. I interrupted you before you answered. What was the most surprising thing about Yankee fans?
Um, I don't know if anything surprised me about Yankee fans. Um,
All right, that
I
could be the
mean,
answer.
yeah, I don't know if anything. I was ready for everything. You know what I mean? And I was terrified, to be honest.
Did they have the
Um,
new stadium yet?
Yeah,
They
the
did, right?
'09 was the
Yeah.
first year. '09 was the first year. And that
It's
was a
not,
big part of me signing here was like I had played in Cleveland and that was kind of a new stadium had opened in 94 and I got in there in '01. So like I wasn't all about going to Dodger. I really thought I was going to be a Dodger. I thought the Dodgers were going to come after me hard, heavy and being a West Coast guy, I thought that's where I would end up. But I wasn't really excited about playing in like old Dodger Stadium with the old clubhouse and like
right.
you know what I'm saying? Like I was excited to get here and have a new clubhouse and kind of start over with obviously one of the, most storied franchises in baseball history, but have a new stadium.
There's 2 baseball questions we just have to quickly talk about.
No worries.
And then I don't want to talk about baseball anymore. You mentioned Mookie.
Uh-huh.
One of top 5 favorite Red Sox player for me. Incredibly important player just for the history of the franchise, a signature black superstar in his prime or hitting his prime. The kind of guy that when I was growing up, we had either always screwed it up with, or, when I was growing up reading about the Red Sox, like a racist tradition.
Yeah. I
And
was
people,
going to ask, have they ever had a Mookie? I mean, I guess Jim Rice maybe, right?
yeah, I mean, Jim Rice was incredible.
But I mean, obviously not. I mean, Mookie.
We've had minority players, but Mookie had a chance to be one of the top 5 guys in the league for 15 years
yeah.
for a position player, something like that. And Jim Rice was an incredible hitter. He peaked for 3 years. He had he had a couple other big seasons, but was really an offensive player. It wasn't, I was telling you when we talked on the phone once about just how incredible Mookie was at everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like we had never had a player who was just like, what's he bad at? And you're just like, nothing. The guy's great at every single part of baseball.
But that's his whole life. Every
Yeah.
aspect of his life, he's great at. Like he can bowl 300. He can shoot 62 on the golf course. Like he can dunk. He can do everything.
And so we lose him. And not only are you losing the player, but you're also losing somebody that I felt like could have been important in the city and was. And why do you think he left? Or why do you think he wanted to leave?
I don't know, honestly. I mean, maybe it could have been like that same thing, like where, he wants to go out and do different things. And like we talked about, Boston won't allow you to do that stuff. Things change all the time in these organizations and, the AL East is hard. You know what I'm saying? Like you don't know which way the organization is going. You know what I mean? You always want to be, especially in this division, you always want to be at the top of this division because it can be long summers. You know what I mean? So I think, maybe just a combination of, some of that stuff off the field and maybe not knowing where the organization is going kind of led for them to trade. And honestly, I mean, they traded him. They didn't have to. You know what I'm saying? Like, so they could have. I think
they felt like he was leaving, which I would not have. I still would have played it out.
I still would have played it out, or even waited until like what the Orioles did with Manny, or what the Indians did with me. You know what I'm saying? Like, wait it out to the middle of next summer and see what happens.
Yeah, they were afraid to do that, and that leads me to question number 2 because it actually might have turned out to be a good trade if there's no baseball this season. It's an appalling trade and one of my least favorite Red Sox trades ever. But if we have a canceled season, maybe it'll be justifiable. But
especially if you don't sign back with the Dodgers, then
right. Do you think we have baseball this year?
You know what? I think it has to get done in the next couple 10 days. Like, it has to get done pretty quick if you're going to start, sometime in July, just because, I feel like guys are kind of in off-season mode right now where
Right.
you don't really know if you're playing. Guys are starting to lift, like they're in the off-season. Maybe not throwing as much as they were early because, you didn't know if you're going to be going for a week or two. It's been 3 months, you know what I'm saying? So they need to get something going pretty quick because I feel like they need a longer spring training than 3 weeks just because of the guys took so much time off. So I think it's going to take a little longer than 3 weeks to get people back to where there is no injuries or unless you're going to let them carry 30 to 35 guys.
Are you allowed to celebrate if you win the World Series after a 50-game season, or maybe like we just use cheap beer? We use like I don't like. What do we do?
You allowed to celebrate the World Series or a Super Bowl or NBA championship at any time.
Okay,
I don't care if it's a lockout. I don't care if you play the basketball. I don't care if you play 15 games, and football. I don't care if you play 4 games. If you win a championship, you're allowed to celebrate.
You don't think they should have a mini trophy, like a half trophy? It's like
the trophy can be the same, but it don't have to be Ace of Spade in the locker room. Like, we can get a little different champagne, but championship's a championship, man. Them things are hard to come by for sure. Like, and if you out there playing and the other team's playing hard as they can, and you win a championship, you don't want nobody to take that away from it or put an asterisk on it or anything like that. Championship's a championship.
Well, if the Red Sox win, there would be no asterisk for me. I'm just saying it's legit. What are you guys talking about? If anyone else wins, I'd just say, it didn't matter. Yeah, I'm with you. I feel like we passed a point of no return about 2 weeks ago. Because, like, imagine, let's say you're 29-year-old you. What's your routine right now? What do you? How are you getting ready right now? Where are you mentally? You have no idea when the baseball is coming back.
29-year-old me is eating a lot of Wendy's and drinking a lot of Hennessy, bro. Like, I'm not getting ready to pitch in the middle of the summer. And I definitely don't want to go to Tampa in the middle of the fucking summer to have spring training.
Right.
Like, no, thank you, bro. Like, not at all. So I think if I was in my prime, I'd probably just sit this year out.
Yeah, say, my elbow. Yeah, I do think if baseball did like quickly and abruptly come back, I do think some of the body sizes will be interesting.
It's going to be very interesting to see. You're going to see who worked hard during quarantine and who kind of like would do the shit that I would have did at 29.
And by the way, might be the same for the NBA because you have these. Initially, we thought it was going to be a 16-team playoff. Potentially, that's it. Now we have 22 teams. I guarantee there's going to be 3 or 4 guys who have not done anything for 3 months.
Or even like somebody like Harden that's lost 20 pounds. Like, that scares me. Like, he's lost 20 pounds.
Is that true?
That's what they said. I mean, I seen a picture of him and then somebody said that he's lost 15 to 20 pounds. That's right. That's what I'm like, man. I mean, it takes you a while to get into that new body and like to figure things out, like with less weight and like the way his game is built. Like, LeBron and Melo tried that and that shit don't work, losing that much weight. I mean, I tried it. I lost, you know what I'm saying? It didn't work for me. Like, it's hard as an athlete to just lose that much weight and then expect you to come back at the same strength and even, cardio and everything. So it'll be interesting. It's going to be interesting. But I think those guys are at a higher risk of getting injured than baseball players if they do, whenever they do come back.
Agree. Especially if I think the biggest thing that's changed with the league the last 15 years is how much time, energy, and attention the good guys spend on their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Even guys like Harden, who has the famous reputation of like, oh yeah, go to the strip club and wake him up at 6 o'clock. But that guy works as hard on his game as anybody. And that's a little unfair that that's a reputation. And I think that's why they're able to play these 30, 35, 36, 3,700 minute seasons when you include the playoffs and go to the free throw line, 10 times a game, 11 times a game. Harden's just like he's like fucking Emmett Smith in the early 90s, just pounding, bouncing off guys. And if his body isn't right, I'm with you. I do think there's going to be some injuries. We've seen it in every lockout season. There's always been stuff. In 99, it happened. In 2012, it happened. It's dangerous. Plus, you're compacting the games. You're playing more games in a condensed rate. And It's worrisome, but I actually like where they settled with it. Did you like it? The 22 team and the whole thing, really trying to have a real season?
Yeah, I'm not mad at it at all. I mean, I would have been happy if they came back with 30 teams. I just know some of those teams didn't want, like the Warriors don't want Steph going out there to play. You know what I'm saying? Like the Nets don't need, Kevin Durant or, Kyrie trying to come back. But no, I'm excited. I love NBA. So any NBA that we get, and now that they're starting July 31st, I feel like they gave guys, I feel like they're giving guys time now to get in shape. Like, hey,
Right.
listen, we start July 31st. You know what I'm saying? Like we giving y'all like 6 to 8 weeks to like get your shit together so we can, so we can have a season and not have some of these guys get hurt. But for me, the biggest thing is, they'll be done. Will they be done in October? I think it said
Yeah, it seems it's a little floating because if series end early, they might be able to speed up the
to
next
speed it
series
up.
because they
But
don't. There's no travel. Everybody can
that's
just play
true.
every other day.
But now the season will start in December. They no way they come back and start the season regularly, right?
No,
After
but
this.
don't you like that though? The
I love it.
if it started on Christmas and went all the way
Love
through
it.
July,
I
I'm
love
in.
it. I'm in for this. Like, I'm so excited about this for next summer and like what it potentially means for us, like going to games in the summertime, NBA late in the summer. Like, that's going to be legit for like us fans. I know it's going to suck for the players because they get their summer taken away. But like, as a NBA fan, like, I'm super excited for them to start on or around Christmas. We get a full NFL season, not have to start worrying about basketball. I can lock in on my fantasy teams because the Raiders suck after like fucking 8 weeks. But um, no, I'm excited to be able for them to start, late mid-December and go through July. It's gonna be fun for us fans, I think.
Yeah, but notice who you left out. The big
Baseball.
loser. Yeah, baseball gets crushed.
But fans don't start watching baseball till August anyway. The thing
Yeah,
is
but
going to crush. It's
that's
going to crush
bad
for
though.
us. Yeah, I mean, the thing is going to crush for us is the All-Star game. I think that baseball should move the All-Star game back to after the NBA season's over, especially if they're having the finals in July. You know what I mean? I think we should move the All-Star game back. But I mean, the people that love baseball, the fans are going to find a way to watch it. And I think, the casual fan, sports fan, they don't really start watching baseball until August, September anyway.
Well, maybe we'll end up with a shorter season, which I feel like we
Baseball
probably
season?
should add anyway. Yeah. Maybe
Nah,
we
I don't think they'll ever change the length of the season.
really? Why
I
not?
don't think so. I think guys like to play 162. I think people are used to seeing like what your numbers can look like in April and then turning around in September. Like, we're just conditioned for the marathon, as
Yeah,
players. Like,
that makes sense.
anything shorter than 162, I think guys will freak out. They'll say, "Oh, I wish we could have more off days and blah blah blah." But guys love baseball, the players, and they want to play every day.
Or they just want to be away from their families. It sounds like what you're really saying. They like being on the road. What do you miss most about playing? Like, what's the dumbest thing you miss about not being on a team?
Honestly, like the food. Like the food at Yankee Stadium is so good. Like, I mean, I'm basically still like I talk to all the guys all the time. I'm still working down there with Cashman, like a special assistant. So I get like all the perks of being around the team, and like if I miss it, I can go down there and say what's up to the guys and all that stuff. But I think like being around there, being like just free to eat all the food all day. Like, we had two great chefs in the Yankee clubhouse that would just cook me whatever, fried chicken, like all kind of shit. So like I think I'm gonna miss that, like having those chefs.
Were you a dugout guy or a bullpen guy?
I was a dugout guy, and I've always been like a in the dugout guy a lot. And later in my career, the last like 3 or 4 years, I was there. I was down there all the time. So that's why you see me getting tossed and shit, and I'm starting fights and like because I was spend so much time down in the dugout. But yeah, no, I the last month of the season, maybe 6 weeks, I went down to the bullpen. So I was in the bullpen for the last 6 weeks, and then the playoffs. I enjoyed that too. I mean, I think I was just enjoying my time,
Yeah.
because I knew it was going to be over. So everything I really like was just taken in and just loved being a part of. So, whatever. I love being in the bullpen too. That was fun.
Did anyone ever charge the mound on you?
Never. I never got charged, man. Never ever.
Were you kind of deep down waiting for it, wondering what
I
it would be like
was.
to be
I
tested?
was. Yeah, it was like nerve-wracking a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Because I had never been charged. I only been like out there running in fights, you know what I'm saying? But no, I don't even think anybody's ever like pretended to charge or like stood at the plate and yelled and shit or nothing. Like nothing like that ever happened to me. Not that I can recall. Maybe like I have to look at some old clips or something, but it seemed like every time I was in a fight, it was because of some shit that I started. You know what I'm saying? So
What was
I
the
think
best what was the best fight you were in? Which team was it? Indians, Yankees, who was it?
the Yankees. We had one here in New York against Toronto when I watched Sato, Jorge Posada beat up this left-handed reliever for the Blue Jays, man. Like it was like I was screaming at him for him to stop. Like, please stop. Like I can't remember that guy's name, but yeah, that one. And then the 17 fight we had with the Tigers.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
That was a great one. And that was one like sometimes those fights can bring you together or they can break you up or, you know, break the team up. That was one that like brought our team so close together and like it was a great fight. Like we had a big fight against the Tigers and, you know, after that we were just one. Like we were all together and that's what led us on that great run. We ended up getting the wild card, coming back beating the Indians and then we know what the fucking Astros did. So but after that fight in 17 was against the Tigers, you know, that kind of got us rolling.
One of the best. I mean, having Pedro pass through my life was still like one of like the true highlights of my life, like prime Pedro, just having that every week. But there was this game in Tampa when he hit Gerald Williams, or he dusted him. I can't remember if it hit him or not, or he almost hit him. And he kind of waited a second, and then he came out and he charged him.
He looked down at his hand. Remember? He looked.
He kind of rope-a-doped it. Like he walked far enough away so the umpire wasn't onto him, and then he went for it, and it was a whole brawl.
Yeah.
And Pedro was so mad, and he stayed in the game. And it was, I think, the second best I've ever seen him pitch, other than the famous game in Yankee Stadium when he had the one hitter against the '99 Yankees. But he basically pitched a no-hitter from that time on. I think there was a guy who had already gotten hit, and he was just throwing like 118 miles an hour. And he was so mad. He was just like destroying them. But you're right. You kind of know what kind of team you have by what happens the first time there's something like that, right? Because it could go the other way. And I can't remember what year we had I think it was the 2000 team. We had a fight, and one guy came out of the dugout, but nobody came with him, and it was like a disaster.
Yeah.
So it can go the other way.
Watching that fight, like the Tigers, it destroyed the Tigers after that. Like Verlander got traded. You know what I'm saying? Like him.
Yeah.
I remember him and Victor or him and Miggy were going at it because maybe he didn't come out or something. I don't know. I mean, you know, me and Victor Martinez are really close too. So, but I don't know how it went. But like I remember them arguing in their dugout, like. And then the next couple weeks, like they were just dismantled. You know what I'm saying? Like it was crazy, man. Like you said, like I said, I mean, those fights can either make you or break you as a club. So knowing that we had all those dudes and everybody was willing to fight. It was a bunch of young guys at the time too. Judge was young, Tyler Austin was young. You know, me and Sonny were out there mixing it. That was a good day. That was a fun fight. We had a good time after too.
I'll tell you, the team that the Yankees had in 19 was one of the great bench clearing brawl teams. I don't think they had one, but they had, I mean, granted, Stanton hasn't played that much, but on paper, at least, you had Stanton and Judge and Luke Voigt and a couple other guys.
What was the big one that we had against the Red Sox? Was that 17 or 18?
It was one of them where I felt
Joe
like
Kelly hit Tyler Austin. Was that 17 or 18?
Yeah, that was 18.
18, okay. That was a good one, too.
I felt like we were a little outgunned. You had multiple 6 foot. It was almost like you had drafted a team for the bench clearing brawl. It was like, we're going to bring in another 6'7" guy.
Yeah, and then you got Chappie, and then you got Dylan, you got me, and we added Luke Voigt. Like, it was like,
tough one. I had a question about when the NBA comes back, what do you think those guys are going to do? I forgot to ask you this earlier from a protest standpoint. Is there going to be a protest? Do you even think it is valuable to send some sort of message before the games for the first game? Anything?
Oh, 1,000%. Those guys are always at the forefront of everything. I mean, aside from Kaepernick, I think I expect 1,000% for all of those guys to do something, you know. I don't know what. I'm not calling for them to do something, but I just know they will. You know, they always have, taken that action and, stepped up and being the leaders of, social justice and getting things to change. And, I don't think this time would be any different.
The Brees thing that happened this week, we should talk about quick
Hmm.
because he even had teammates coming at him, and
Yeah.
it was just an old school kind of disaster for a sports team and for him, obviously. But where it's just such the timing of it was horrible. It was ugly, and what does that do to a team? How do you heal from that? If you were on, let's say you're on the Saints, and you want everybody to get past this, he apologized. You know, what are the next steps? Can you recover from something like that?
I think you can recover, but it's that's rough. I mean, I think, Drew has to realize that the America that he lived in and grew up in is different from the one that, a lot of his teammates and African American players grew up in. You know what I mean? So it just comes off a little insensitive, I think, but I, I think you can get past it. Obviously, he's the leader of the team, and if he apologizes and guys know his character, and if he's sincere and he's willing to be educated, I don't think there's a reason why. I don't think there's a reason why they can't get past it, especially because they're not playing right now. If this was during the season, it might be a little harder. But you got so much time to mend relationships and educate yourself and do better. Really, I think they definitely can get past it. It's a tough situation, and that's what I was saying earlier. Like that's why a lot of the times when things would happen in the past and I would be in the locker room, it's just best not to even bring it up or talk about it because we all grew up different places. We all have different backgrounds. We all have different beliefs. But when we in that locker room, it's all about trying to win and win. I mean, obviously some situations outweigh everything like this George Floyd and, a lot of different situations outweigh, not wanting to upset your teammate or make rumbles on the team. And I think this was one of them. And, everybody's been speaking out and, hopefully he can just educate himself and those guys can get on the same page. But the fact that, you had everybody going back at him, just let you know the climate of what's going on right now.
Why do you think for 3 solid years, people have misunderstood the point of what Kaepernick was doing? I
I
mean,
think
it's
people, I think,
2020 and people are still getting wrong what the whole fucking
yeah,
point was.
I think people wanted to make it about what they wanted to make it about, and not what he was telling you it was about. He told us it was about police and justice, and this is what I'm taking a knee for. And everybody else made it into what they wanted to make it into. And now we're still sitting here looking at police and justice live on fucking TV every day. And now everybody wants to. I mean, we just watched the cop take a knee on a black man's back after everybody got mad about Kaepernick taking a knee. Like, it's just symbolic of our country and what's been going on. And people not wanting to have the tough conversations and learn and educate themselves on what Black America goes through.
Have you ever talked to him?
Cap? No, I've never talked to him. We have a couple of mutual friends, but I've never gotten a chance to really have a conversation with him now.
Well, what a moment where, I mean, Steven Jackson, who I know a little bit, I know you know him too, but
Yeah, I know Jack well.
for him to emerge as, one of the main voices here, it's been pretty amazing to watch.
It's right though. I mean,
Yeah.
he's always right on the mark with a lot of stuff that he says. A lot of people don't agree with a lot of shit that he says, but he's not going to tell you a lie, man. That guy's been through literally everything. From backing up his teammates, going into the stands, to winning championships, to everything. Like, he's been through everything as a athlete, as a father, as a man off the field, like off the court. Like, he's just somebody I think everybody can look to, and he's going to tell you the real. So him and Matt. I mean, that's why their show's so great. So, I'm just excited for them and what they got coming up. But to see Steven Jackson be the voice and emerge as one of the voices of this of this movement is great. And it's just something that I think a lot of people can get behind because he is one of the voices.
What do you think I should do with my platform over the next few weeks and months?
This, as much as you can. Have as many people as you can on here talking about, these tough issues, having conversations, learning what we go through and just kind of explaining that to your audience. And that's really all we can do. And just try to educate people, inform people, and hopefully they can, the minds that we need to change can get changed for sure.
All right. I want to say I could have gone 4 hours, but I want to save stuff because I hope we get to do this a couple more times over the next few months. So,
Yeah, for sure. No, I'm looking forward to it. This was great. Finally, thank you.
yeah, it's nice to finally do this, but I really appreciate you and thanks for coming on.
No problem.